I 28 male am a logistics manager for a mid-sized shipping firm, and up until recently, I spent the last 3 years believing that providing for a partner was just what a responsible, caring guy did. I was the guy who wanted to build a solid foundation. My girlfriend had quit her administrative job about 14 months ago. She claimed she was entirely burned out, needed time to figure out her true passion, and wanted to start her own independent consulting business. I started working 50-hour weeks to make sure she had the financial space to find herself. Things started getting a little strange around late August. She became highly protective of her phone, which was unusual for her. She would suddenly leave the room to take calls, claiming it was potential clients for her new business. She also started demanding more cash, saying she needed capital for marketing materials, website hosting, and networking events. I transferred the money to her without much resistance. I trusted her completely, assuming it was all part of the startup grind. Then came the dinner. Girlfriend's parents were visiting from out of state for the weekend. I booked a table at a very high-end steakhouse downtown to treat them. I knew the bill was going to be substantial, and I knew I was paying it, but I wanted to make a good impression. We sat down and ordered drinks. Girlfriend's mother and girlfriend's father were their usual selves, talking about their recent home renovations and asking about my job. Girlfriend, however, was visibly vibrating with anxiety. She kept checking her watch, barely touched her water, and kept glancing nervously toward the large glass windows at the front entrance of the restaurant. We had just finished ordering our main courses. I placed my credit card in the leather folio the waiter had left on the table for the pre-authorization. The waiter walked away. Suddenly, girlfriend stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor, cutting through the low murmur of the restaurant. She slammed both hands on the table, leaning right over the centerpieces. "I cannot take this anymore," she shouted. Her voice was incredibly loud, echoing off the high ceilings. "I broke up with you 6 months ago. You need to stop chasing me. You need to stop suffocating me. I am done with you." The entire restaurant went completely silent. Forks stopped clinking. People at adjacent tables turned around to stare. Girlfriend's mother gasped loudly, covering her mouth with her cloth napkin. Girlfriend's father glared at me from across the table. The look on his face was pure, unadulterated disgust. He actually slid his chair back, positioning himself between me and his daughter, as if I were some kind of active physical threat. I just sat there. I was completely stunned. I didn't defend myself, and I didn't cause a scene. I looked at girlfriend. Her eyes were wide, darting toward the restaurant entrance again, then back to me. She wasn't looking at me like a person she was actually angry with. She was looking at me like a stage actor who had just delivered a line and was waiting for a cue. I stood up. I simply walked over to the waiter who was standing near the terminal, asked him to cancel the pre-authorization on my card, handed him a $100 bill for the drinks and appetizers we had already consumed, and walked out the front door without looking back. I drove straight to our apartment. My mind was remarkably clear. All the confusion from the restaurant had immediately crystallized into pure, focused action. I grabbed my suitcases from the hall closet. I systematically packed all my clothes, my important documents, my laptop, and my personal valuables. While I was packing, I opened my banking app on my phone. I transferred all the funds from our joint checking account into my private, individual savings account. I logged into my credit card portals and removed her as an authorized user on every single account. I logged into the auto insurance portal and removed her vehicle, which I had been paying for, from my policy. I loaded my car in the dark. The apartment lease was technically in her name because she had lived there before we met, but I was the one paying the rent directly from my account every month. I took my payment information off the portal. I logged into utility accounts, took my name off them, and scheduled the shut-off for the end of the week. I left my keys on the kitchen counter, locked the door behind me, and drove to a hotel near my office. By midnight, my phone started ringing. It was girlfriend, then it was girlfriend's mother, then girlfriend's father. I ignored all of them. I turned my phone on silent, rolled over, and went to sleep. 5 days passed. I rented a new apartment close to my office and slowly started replacing the household items I had left behind. My phone was a constant, daily stream of aggressive text messages from girlfriend demanding to know why her debit card was declining at the grocery store and why the electricity company had just sent her a shut-off notice. I did not reply to a single one. On a Tuesday afternoon, I was sitting in a coffee shop a few blocks from my new place, working on my laptop. The door chimed. I looked up, and to my complete surprise, it was girlfriend's sister. Girlfriend's sister had always been the grounded, rational one in the family. She saw me, stopped in her tracks, and immediately walked over to my table. She looked absolutely exhausted. She sat down across from me without even asking. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Her tone wasn't angry or accusatory. It was just incredibly tired. "Why are you still torturing her? If you just accept the breakup, you can both move on." I slowly set my coffee down. I haven't spoken a single word to her since the dinner. I moved out that exact night. I canceled the cards I was paying for, and I took my name off the bills. That's not torturing her. That's just leaving. Girlfriend's sister looked deeply confused, her eyebrows knitting together, but she said you're stalking her. She told our parents you refused to move your stuff out of the apartment. She told everyone you wouldn't accept the breakup from January. I stopped cold. "January?" "Yes," she said, looking at me like I was a crazy one. "When she met her fiancé. She said she broke it off with you back then, but you threatened to ruin her life if she made you leave the apartment." The pieces suddenly started falling into place with sickening clarity. She had been living a complete double life. For 9 entire months, I had been paying her rent, buy her groceries, and funding her supposed business venture while she was dating, and apparently getting engaged to someone else entirely. Why did she scream at the dinner? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Girlfriend's sister sighed, rubbing her temples. Her fiancé flew into town early to surprise her. He tracked her location to the restaurant. She saw him walking up to the window. She had to make it look like you were ambushing us, so he wouldn't find out you two were still living together and acting like a couple. She told him you were an obsessive ex who tracked her down at a family dinner. I sat back in my chair, absorbing the sheer magnitude of the deception. She had orchestrated an entire public humiliation just to protect her lie. She used me as a personal ATM for over a year and then framed me as an unstable, dangerous stalker to her new partner and her own family. Then girlfriend's sister delivered the final, devastating blow. "Look," she said, softening her voice, "I know you're hurting, but freezing all the accounts was really petty, especially after you co-signed the lease on the new luxury townhouse for her and her fiancé. You promised her that as a parting gift to help her start her new life. Backing out of the financial commitment now is just cruel." All the ambient noise in the coffee shop faded out entirely. I stared at her. "I never co-signed a townhouse," I said. Girlfriend's sister frowned, looking defensive. She showed us the lease. "Your signature is right there on the document. Your income verification and credit check are on it." I pulled out my phone immediately. I opened my credit monitoring app. I hadn't checked my full, detailed report in months, relying only on the basic push alerts from my existing everyday cards. I refreshed the dashboard and downloaded the full report. There were 3 recent hard inquiries from property management companies. There were also 2 newly opened credit cards I had absolutely no knowledge of. Both cards had been opened in the last 60 days, and both were maxed out to their absolute limits of $15,000 each. Girlfriend hadn't just cheated on me. She hadn't just used my money. She had actively stolen my identity, forged my signature, and leveraged my excellent credit score to secure a luxury townhouse and fund a wedding with another man. All the business expenses I had been giving her cash were just supplementary funds for her secret life. I looked up at girlfriend's sister. I turned my phone around and slid it across the table so she could see the screen. "Tell your sister I'm not stalking her," I said smoothly, "but the police definitely will be." I did not go to the police right away. I am a meticulous person, and I knew I needed professional guidance. I went straight to a lawyer. I scheduled an emergency consultation with an attorney who specialized in civil litigation and financial fraud. I sat in his office and laid out the entire timeline, the text messages, the downloaded credit report, and the shocking information girlfriend's sister had just provided. The attorney was incredibly thorough and calm. He explained the exact legal process we needed to follow under state and federal law to protect my assets and ensure she faced the maximum consequences for her actions. First, he explained, I had to file an official identity theft affidavit with the Federal Trade Commission. Second, I had to take that completed, sworn affidavit to my local police precinct and file a formal criminal report for identity theft and forgery. Third, I needed to contact Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion to place an extended fraud alert and a hard security freeze on my credit files. Finally, his office would draft certified legal letters to the creditors of the fraudulent cards and the property management company of the townhouse, including the police report number, officially notifying them of the fraud. I took a few days off work and spent the next 48 hours executing every single step exactly as instructed. While I was silently securing my life and building a fortress around my finances, girlfriend's entitlement reached dangerous, almost comical levels. She had finally realized her new credit cards were frozen, and her new luxury lease was suddenly under review by the management company. Instead of backing down, she decided to go on the offensive. She tracked down my office building. She didn't try to come inside and talk to me. Instead, she sat in her car across the street, called the local police dispatch, and reported that I had stolen her vehicle and was currently hiding it in my company's private parking garage. The vehicle in question was a car I had purchased 2 years ago, financed entirely in my name and registered strictly in my name. She had only been driving it because I allowed it. 2 uniformed officers arrived at my office reception area. It was highly embarrassing to have the police show up at my workplace, but I remained completely calm. I walked down to the lobby, shook their hands, and showed them the state registration, the loan documents on my phone app, and my driver's license. I also pulled up the active police report number for the identity theft and forgery case I had filed against her just 2 days prior. The officers took one look at the paperwork, noted the fraud case number, apologized profusely for the interruption, and left. An hour later, my phone lit up with a barrage of unhinged text messages from her. You are ruining my life. You have no right to do this. You owe me that apartment. I wasted 3 years of my youth with you. Unfreeze those cards right now, or I am filing a restraining order against you for financial abuse and emotional damage. You promised to take care of me. You are legally obligated to support my lifestyle because we lived together for years. She was actually trying to claim common law marriage rights to my income, entirely ignoring the fact that our state does not recognize common law marriage whatsoever, unless both parties formally agree to be married, sign a declaration, and present themselves publicly as a married couple, which we never, ever did. When threats didn't work, she attempted her dirtiest trick yet. She contacted my company's HR department, pretending to be my wife. She used my old employee ID number, which she had memorized, and attempted to bypass the security questions over phone to change my direct deposit information to a new routing number that belonged to her personal bank account. She wanted to intercept my paycheck. Fortunately, my company's IT department flagged the IP address mismatch from her previous login attempts, and HR refused to make the change over the phone without my in-person verification. The HR director called me immediately to report the suspicious activity. She was incredibly desperate. She was rapidly realizing that the free ride was entirely over. The walls were closing in on her, and her shiny new life was built on stolen funds that were currently evaporating into thin air. My lawyer advised me not to respond to a single one of her communications. He told me to save every text, record every voicemail, and document every email. She is building the criminal case against herself, he told me, leaning back in his chair. Do absolutely nothing. Just let her keep digging her own grave. The legal system does not move quickly, which was incredibly frustrating but necessary. It took about 6 weeks for the financial crimes detective assigned to my case to gather the necessary evidence. He had to subpoena the IP addresses from the online credit card applications to prove they were submitted from her devices, and he had to secure the forged lease documents directly from a property management company to verify the fraudulent signatures. During those 6 agonizing weeks, the property management company concluded their internal investigation. They officially nullified the lease on the luxury townhouse, due to application fraud. Because she and her fiancé had already started moving some belongings in, the company issued an immediate eviction notice. Girlfriend, completely out of options, facing sudden homelessness, and unable to access any credit, instructed a cheap strip mall attorney she found online to send me a formal demand letter. The letter was a joke. It stated she would graciously drop her claims of financial abuse and stalking if I agreed to pay off the $30,000 balance of the credit cards and give her a one-time lump sum of $10,000 to help her relocate. My lawyer read the letter, laughed out loud, and responded by formally inviting her and her attorney to our office for a mediation meeting. She walked into the sleek conference room looking incredibly smug, wearing a designer outfit she had undoubtedly bought with my stolen credit. She sat down, crossed her arms defensively, and glared at me across the polished mahogany table. Her attorney, a guy in a wrinkled suit who looked completely unprepared for what was about to happen, cleared his throat and started talking about favorable settlement terms and avoiding messy litigation. My lawyer held up a single hand to stop him. He calmly opened a thick manila folder on the table. "There will be no settlement of any kind," my lawyer said, his voice cold and professional. "My client is here simply as a courtesy to inform you of the current factual legal standing of the situation." He slowly slid 3 distinct documents across the table. The first document was the official, notarized notification from the property management company, confirming the lease was entirely fraudulent and stating they were actively pursuing separate civil charges against her for the falsified application and the cost of the eviction process. The second document was a printout of a lengthy email from her fiancé. My lawyer had contacted him directly as part of our independent investigation to determine if he was a willing accomplice to the fraud. The fiancé was completely horrified. He had absolutely no idea the money was stolen or that the credit cards were in my name. She had convinced him she had a massive trust fund and a highly successful consulting business. He stated clearly in the email that he had immediately broken off the engagement, moved back to his home state, and severed all contact with her permanently. The third document was a certified copy of an active, signed felony arrest warrant issued by the county judge for grand theft, forgery, and identity theft. Girlfriend looked down at the papers. The color completely drained from her face, leaving her looking pale and sick. Her smugness evaporated in an instant. Her hands started trembling. She looked at her attorney, who was aggressively reading the copy of the arrest warrant, his eyes wide. Her attorney slowly placed the paper back on the table, closed his briefcase with a loud snap, stood up, and looked down at her. "I cannot represent you in active criminal matters, nor was I informed of these pending felony charges," he said, sounding furious. "This meeting is over. Do not contact my office again." He turned and walked straight out of the room. Girlfriend looked at me. The reality of her situation finally hit her. She started crying, not the fake, theatrical tears in a restaurant, but real, ugly, panicked tears. She leaned across the table and begged me to call the police and tell them it was all just a big misunderstanding between partners. She promised she would get a minimum wage job and pay me back every single cent over the next 20 years. She said her entire life would be completely over if she went to state prison. I looked at her. I thought about the steakhouse dinner. I thought about her screaming at me in front of her parents, intentionally trying to ruin my reputation just to protect her selfish lies. I thought about the countless hours I spent working late at the shipping firm, stressing over bills, while she was actively stealing my identity to build a dream life with another man. "You broke up with me in January," I said calmly. "I'm just finally accepting it." I stood up, pushed my chair in, and left the room, leaving her sobbing alone at the conference table. She was arrested 2 days later, while pulling into her parents' driveway. The judge set her bond incredibly high due to the proven flight risk and the substantial amount of money involved in the fraud. Her parents called my phone endlessly for a week, leaving tearful voicemails begging me to drop the charges, claiming she was just confused, under a lot of stress, and made a silly mistake. I blocked their numbers without listening to the rest. The criminal trial process is still ongoing, but the district prosecutor has personally assured me the digital and physical evidence is absolutely ironclad. Thanks to the prompt legal actions, the credit bureaus have fully removed the fraudulent accounts and hard inquiries from my credit history. My score is back to normal, and my finances are secure.